What's up, everybody? I'm Jonathan the Baptist, and today we're going to talk about the Buckgate controversy again. If you haven't seen part 1 and 2, I've already reviewed the first 2 videos that Tom and Jennifer Buck have released. I think they went through some production organization or whatever to actually make the videos, but anywho, but I'm gonna call it they're releasing. So if you haven't checked those out, go ahead and check those out. I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. I don't know most or any of these people. Like I've met Dr. Aiken because I went to Southeastern, but I don't even know if I ever met Keith Whitfield while I was there. And so like I don't really know any of these people. I follow a few of them on Twitter, and that's about it. So I've engaged with some of them on Twitter, but that's about like how much do you know people that you talk to on Twitter? Like not really at all. So I've heard of the situation. I followed it a little bit, the whole controversy, but I really don't know anything. So I'm not trying to like accuse anybody of any wrongdoing. I'm just like reviewing the evidence that the Bucks have just released, because I think that some of this was handled poorly, and I think we need to have a resolution to this, and so one that everybody can work out. I think as Christians we can work through tough issues and come out better on the other side. So let's get into this. I don't know. This is after the document has been released. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can just go check out the other videos and you'll kind of see the timeline. So this is the third part of the timeline, which is a lot closer to where we are today. I think it was earlier this year. I assume that's what's going to be covered in this, but let's hop on over to that now. All right, so this is Tom Buck on Twitter. This video has already started. I usually pause it, but I haven't watched this, so I think this was just released, 5-ish hours ago. Okay, it's around that. I'm not going to take the time to figure. Maybe 6 hours. Anyways, it's just a few hours ago. So that is the date of my recording, just a few hours later. So I have not seen this. But let's just hop into it and see what's what. Oh, wrong way. Okay. I think it's better if my face is over here. All right, here we go.
A promise to me before you have a promise to them.
This person said you may be upset with me when I tell you this. This person sent it to me because I asked him to. I asked him to because I wanted to be prepared to defend you.
Who did you ask?
I'm not going to tell you.
I had no idea who that person is. Why wouldn't you tell them? Why? I don't know. Let's see what the context is. I'm sure we'll get there.
On April 1st, 2022, the Bucks were living in a nightmare. Unknown, nameless people were passing around Jennifer's rough draft without her consent. Their private information is now exposed bare to the dark forces in the SBC. Pastor Tom began to receive phone calls saying that Jennifer's rough draft has been sent to news outlets.
Sorry.
And he best keep
He calls them dark forces. I can't help but think of what is that verse in the New Testament? It's like we our fight is not against men, but against how does it go? The dark force. I don't know if it says dark forces, but the powers and stuff. That kind of reminds me, like as if they're like trying to assume that. I'm assuming it's not a Star Wars reference because there is some really great Dark Forces games in Star Wars. But anyway, so that's why I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at the situation. They're like these evil people. The dark forces of the SBC. Okay. I get it. Okay. I'm not trying to say the motive of the people who did this documentary. I just think it's funny.
keep quiet about his conversation with Willie Rice.
A lot of people have not served us well. If my rough draft is...
I'm sorry. Have you seen Parks and Rec? There's this one episode where they're trying to do a smear campaign against Bobby Newport. Bobby Newport has never had a job in his life. The dark forces of the SBC. I'm sorry. We'll keep going. This is serious. I'll try to put a serious face on.
Around Jennifer's rough draft without her consent. Their private information is now exposed bare to the dark forces in the SBC. Pastor Tom began to receive phone calls saying that Jennifer's rough draft has been sent to news outlets, and he best keep quiet about his conversation with Willie Rice.
A lot of people have not served us well if my rough draft has been passed around, and nobody has called us. Not one person called us and said, this is what's going on, other than to get the threat that you better keep your mouth shut or it's going to be dropped.
Threats were made. Words were twisted. Nowhere to go. Not knowing what to do, Tom contacted Rachel Denhollinger on April 1st of the threats he had been receiving, to which Rachel gave a very long but informative message that Karen Pryor had called her yesterday on March 31st, to which Karen informed Rachel that a third party approached her to verify the rough draft. She reached out to me because someone contacted her third hand, asking her to verify that she gotten that draft from you. She doesn't know who had the other person reach out. She called me because of my background in the abuse arena, not knowing I knew you. She felt very strongly that it was wrong for that piece to go out and was questioning the timing. With this information, Tom and Jennifer knew that they needed to contact Karen Pryor as soon as possible.
We don't have a good reason to believe we would ever known that they went to Keith and Karen if Rachel hadn't told us that Karen had talked to her. And that's how we knew to reach out to Karen.
Just to clarify, the interviews that we've been watching the whole time are they haven't actually happened yet in the timeline. So we're watching these interviews and they've clipped it to show us what the people said about the timeline, the events in the timeline. So they haven't actually had this meeting, this I guess it's a Zoom call. They haven't actually had this meeting yet as far as the timeline goes. So these clips that we're getting of them talking to each other via, I guess, Zoom, a video chat, those haven't happened. They haven't occurred yet. I think we're about to get to that. Just for clarification, I don't want you to be confused. These videos, I'm sure you're smart enough to figure that out, but just for anybody who missed that and was confused, there you go.
Tom and Jennifer then contacted Karen on April 2nd, demanding to know who approached her, to which she refused, because she didn't trust Tom and was trying to protect Keith.
I've already said that you knew that I wasn't going to tell you, right? Because I said I wasn't going to tell you. I was being honest and saying I wasn't going to tell you, and you know now who it was. So, yes, I was trying to protect him.
Protect him from what?
I don't know.
And when Jennifer begged Karen to reveal who the third party was that approached her, Karen Pryor instead laid the blame at Jennifer's feet. And Karen said to her, "They were your words, Jennifer. And my mom said you should never put in writing what you don't want the whole world to read."
Just so you can see, First Baptist Church Elder Statement to SEBTS. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but since it's underneath my picture there.
Realizing Karen is refusing to help, Tom and Jennifer then contacted Dr. Aiken the same evening. Dr. Danny Aiken is the president of Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary and also Keith Whitfield's superior. Pastor Tom informed Danny of the ongoing blackmail and horrible mistreatment Karen gave to Jennifer. Dr. Aiken then said he'll get to the bottom of this and will have Karen reveal who was the third party.
So when you called me that Saturday night, I immediately, before the Duke Carolina game was over, I called Keith. Dr.
Aiken immediately then called Keith Whitfield, who is Karen Pryor's boss, and demanded Keith to get Karen to reveal who approached her.
Dr. Aiken's a true sports fan, he knows. The Duke Carolina game. he's been living in North Carolina for a good while. Sorry, I thought that was funny.
The Duke Carolina game was over. I called Keith.
Dr. Aiken immediately then called Keith Whitfield, who was Karen Pryor's boss, and demanded Keith to get Karen to reveal who approached her.
And said, I want you to get in touch with Karen and make sure that no one is going to get this story out, because it would be wrong, which we all agree would be wrong to happen. And I really would like to know who this party is.
Unbeknownst to Dr. Aiken, Keith Whitfield was the third party. Keith did not reveal to Dr. Aiken that he was the one that approached Karen to authenticate the rough draft.
So just so you know, up until this point, I don't think Dr. Aiken has done anything wrong. Obviously, I think he's making the correct actions up to this point. So he does a couple things that I think I wish he hadn't done. I don't think it's quite in the same degree that others have done so far. But I think as far as Dr. Aiken goes, I think he's so far, as far as I know, seemingly handled this appropriately. That he does a couple things that I didn't really care for later on. But, we'll get to that as it comes up. I just wanted to make sure, because I talked about Dr. Aiken before and how he did some things that I was disappointed in. And again, there's not going to be anybody that has not ever done anything that I was disappointed in. Everybody I know has done stuff I wouldn't do or I disagree with, So it is what it is. But, I think that he some of the actions taken were bad, but up to this point, I think he's done the right thing, and I think Karen did some of the right thing too. And unfortunately, I just don't know enough about what Keith has done because he's been very shady about what he's done. So let's keep watching.
Instead, he lied to Dr. Aiken that he will get to the bottom of this, and Keith will hide this truth for the next 15 days until on April 17th when he finally tells Dr. Aiken.
Keith calls me and says, I need to share something with you. And I said, okay, what is it? He said, I'm the person that contacted Karen. And needless to say, I was not happy.
Because in Keith's mind, he believes he wasn't lying to Dr. Aiken. He was just withholding information.
We can talk about whether I lied to Dr. Aiken or not. I don't believe that I did. I do believe I withheld information from him that I had.
But according to Danny Aiken, he believes Keith did lie to him.
And I'll tell you this, Tom, if it does come out somehow that Keith was the one who did all this, I will fire him. I will absolutely terminate him. He did lie to me. Furthermore, he acted with high-handed sinfulness and complete unethicalness, and I would fire him.
At this point, it is worthy to consider why the mistreatment Keith and Karen are giving to the Bucks. Why?
That's the right response. If you're willing to lie to the president of the school in this whole discussion, I mean, he's put Dr. Aiken in a pretty bad spot because Dr. Aiken to this point has, said other things because he just he didn't know the truth because his people had been lying to him, or at least one of them had. So, that's a pretty rough spot. I think there's a recording of Dr. Aiken saying something to that effect. I don't think we have the recording of him talking to Keith Whitfield, but anywho, I think he recalls that discussion and says something like, hey, you put me in a really tough spot, and it's true. So it's interesting. So this is a side. But me and my buddy were having this discussion the other day, not regarding this situation. We were watching this anime, and this teacher was just being really, really horrible to one of the students. And I was like, there are certain offenses that it's just on the spot. This person should not be teaching. If you're willing to lie to the president, who else are you willing to lie to? That's just really bad. Like, you know, at the very least, he should be stripped of his title at the SBC or at Southeastern. You know, for lying, and I don't think he's the provost anymore, whatever that means. I'm not, you know, aware of all the titles and what they mean, but I don't think he's there anymore. I could be wrong, but that's what I've heard. So yeah.
Why are they doing this? What will motivate them to do such a thing? Could it be because point? It is worthy to consider why the mistreatment Keith and Karen are giving to the Bucks. Why are they doing this? What will motivate them to do such a thing? Could it be because this isn't the first skirmish with Pastor Tom? If we jump back to the year 2019, on October 24th, Southeastern officially announced that Karen Pryor was hired to be the research professor of English and Christianity and Culture. Southeastern was a very important institution in the Southern Baptist Convention, and many were opposed to Karen's hiring at Southeastern and saw it as a compromise.
You may not remember this, but when Karen was coming to Southeastern, I was opposed adamantly against her coming there. I was opposed. I wrote a letter to you and Keith, and I sent it to you guys about my concerns with her connections to Revoice.
Karen Pryor's endorsement for organizations that affirm the gay Christian movement, such as Revoice and the Center for Faith, Sexuality, and Gender, sparked concerns that the college could drift leftward.
I don't remember how long ago it was, but recently there was the announcement that Karen Swallow Pryor was hired
about a month ago, I think.
By Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. And when I received that announcement, I thought that it seemed like a watershed moment to me, because the people that I know and trust and read have been saying that Revoice is a fundamentally flawed conference.
Even Tom Askell, who is a good friend of Tom Buck and one of the future presidential nominees of 2022, wrote to Karen Pryor in private on October 25th, 2019. Dr. Askell asked Karen directly if she renounced Revoice, but didn't get a satisfactory answer. She responded in an email the next day expressing her views on caring for those who are same-sex attracted and giving some explanation about why she had endorsed Revoice. Though she did not answer my question, I appreciated what she wrote. Karen was unclear of whether she retracted her position of Revoice. It wasn't until less than a month later, on November 18th, 2019, when a video surfaced of Karen Pryor being interviewed by Biblical Recorder, to which, in the interview, she still affirmed Revoice's mission.
You know, I do understand why the Revoice conference is problematic. I understand why especially after the fact, after it took place. But I still support its mission of helping Christians live faithfully, regardless of what their sexual struggles are.
I'm not super familiar with all the Revoice stuff. I think John Harris did a whole video on that, so I'd go check that out if you're interested. But I didn't realize that was all going on between Buck and Pryor. I knew that she had said some things that people had a hard time with, but I don't really follow Karen Pryor, so I don't really know what all she believes. I know she's pretty egalitarian, which is why I would say she shouldn't be hired for Southeastern, but to each his own. Let's keep going.
Prompted Dr. Askell to write a lengthy article on November 20th, calling out Danny Akin for hiring Karen Pryor. Yet, President Danny Akin, president of Southeastern, has hired Dr. Karen Swallow Pryor to teach at his school when she has unapologetically endorsed a conference that, in the words of Dr. Butterfield, promotes a different religion. And he expects Southern Baptists to sit back quietly and pay her salary.
This is definitely a far more convincing reason not to hire her at Southeastern.
This article sparked a reaction from many. Tom Buck, on November 22, in a Twitter thread, publicly called out Danny Akin and Karen Pryor by saying, "Karen and others think we misunderstand and misrepresent Revoice." So here's the challenge. I want to give
Note the date here. This is in 2019, so this is an old tweet.
Aiken, and the trustees of Southeastern listen to one talk at Revoice, Redeeming Queer Culture and Adventure, and tell us if you can still defend this movement. The combination of Tom Askell's article and Pastor Buck's Twitter thread brought a lot of heat to Karen Pryor, so much so that she privately messaged Tom Buck her frustration with Tom's behavior. "Remember when you wrote this to me?" To which she shared a photo of a previous message of Tom Buck. It shows Tom saying if she was hired as a professor at an SBC seminary, he wouldn't call for her termination like he did for the ERLC.
She looks at where I'd said something to the...
Okay, hold on. So this is July 13th. So this is a number of months before. I'm curious. Where is it? There it is. Okay. Okay, hold on. Let's fast forward this a little bit. All right. Revoice represented the SBC in the way I think it should. It's not personal. It's not that I think you are a horrible person. The things Revoice promotes, like that video I sent you, is dangerous heresy, in my opinion. But this has never been about me trying to win. You probably find my reasoning as complex as I do yours. But I think we both are sincere in what we believe and don't want to destroy each other. FWIW. I'm not good at texting language, so let me know what that means. Oh, for what it's worth. Ha! I got it! Let's go. If you were a professor at a SBC seminary, don't you need an N there, and SBC seminary? I wouldn't want you fired. I just see the ERLC having a different purpose anyway. It's interesting. So he has changed his opinion on that. But again, this is what, like, let's see, like 5 or 6 months earlier. So in 5 or 6 months, like, you could see like a different outcome if you just, like, your opinion has changed.
Hired as a professor at an SBC seminary, he wouldn't call for her termination like he did for the ERLC.
She looks at where I'd said something in the past, and she's right about 4 or 5 months prior to that. She's right, I did say that. But I'm thinking in the time, she's teaching English. So when she comes to your all's school, she was really, in my opinion, being promoted for more than that. And so I didn't feel she should serve there.
Even Tom Buck wrote back to Karen admitting his inconsistency. "Yes, I believe I allowed my love for you as a friend, which I still do, to cloud my vision in what I said there. And I think you are allowing your love for many and those in Revoice to cloud your vision. Everything I said above I still agree with, except for thinking it would be okay for you to teach at an SBC seminary. So I retract that and wish you would retract your support of Revoice. It's dangerous, Karen." But Karen wrote back to Tom, "Your love for me as a friend had nothing to do with an unsolicited distinction you drew between ERLC fellow and seminary, and that distinction has nothing to do with Revoice. I haven't changed my views or positions. I endorsed a conference before it happened, and refused further requests to partner with them afterward, and have stated so. You have been inconsistent and proven untrustworthy. I'm grieved by that." And then Karen concluded the conversation by saying, "Tom, I'm so grieved and frankly afraid of you now that I can't respond." And this grief led Karen 15 minutes later, out of anger, to publish Tom Askell's private October 25th email publicly on Twitter. It is frustrating and wrong to consistently receive kind words in private, followed by uncharitable attacks in public by Buck and Askell. Whatever political purposes they have or whatever platform they're trying to build, I want no part in it.
Dr. Pryor released those private emails, so as if that were a smoking gun that somehow outed me, which it doesn't at all. All it does is, violates the sense of privacy you have whenever you're having communications like that. But nevertheless, the issue remains. This is a serious thing. Revoice is poison.
If Karen Pryor's anger towards Tom...
So, I think that it might be good for us to have, I say us, as an SBC, what types of qualities do we want in seminary professors? Like, what things should you believe theologically to teach at an SBC seminary? Because in the past, we've had like super uber liberals teach at Southeastern and other colleges. Like, the whole conservative resurgence is because like they were doing some horrible stuff here. Like when I came to Southeastern in college, you start hearing all the horror stories of what went on before Paige Patterson came to the seminary. So it's like, what is what is the level? What is the standard that Southern Baptists want for their seminary professors? Because these are the people who are going to be teaching your pastors, your future pastors. I have a lot of my own thoughts on that. That's for another time, another video. But yeah, it's just I think that's something we should probably have a discussion on and figure out as a convention, because I would probably draw the line very differently than others. Like, I would not have ever hired Karen Pryor. It's not that I don't necessarily believe that she's a Christian. She's at least a professing Christian. But I don't think that because of her theology, it'd be good for her to be teaching future pastors and future missionaries and future, like Christians. I don't think she should be teaching Baptists, future leaders of the SBC, and future important people in our churches, like leaders of the churches. Like, I don't think like that would be good because of some of the things she believes. So I think that's something we should have, another topic for another day. But yeah, something that we should probably be thinking about as we progress and we figure out, especially this year when we're going to be debating about all the female pastor stuff and what is a pastor, stuff that we should already know. But I feel like this would be a good extension of that. Like, what are the qualities we want for churches that are in our convention? What are the qualities we want within our a professor at our seminaries? So, just food for thought. Let's keep going.
Askell is enough for her to share private emails publicly on Twitter. Could it be that she is also willing to share Jennifer's rough draft to others, such as Keith Whitfield, to shame Pastor Tom?
But have you sent it to anybody in the last year?
Well, 2 years.
Okay.
Since November 22nd of 2019.
I don't think so.
What about Keith Whitfield? Well, the next day, after Karen publishes Askell's emails, Keith Whitfield responded back to Pastor Tom. Keith Whitfield defended Karen Pryor and didn't see her endorsements as problematic, and did not appreciate how Pastor Tom interacts with people who disagree with him. There's room for disagreement on these issues. It seems to me that disagreement is over the way and wisdom she and others interact given the broader cultural landscape and not her or others' convictions. I have concerns with the way you interact given the broader cultural landscape. I often don't think it is wise. I don't paint you in a corner with every disagreement. It is disheartening to be treated, or my friends to be treated, as the enemy. I do not question Karen's convictions. This text message is very revealing because it shows that Keith Whitfield sees Tom Buck as a person who intimidates his friends and treats them as his enemies, which, if applied to what happens in 2022, it makes Keith's actions more sense. We know that Keith Whitfield is one of Willie Rice's friends who encouraged him to run for the SBC presidency. And we know that Keith was one of the only 2 SBC convention leaders that knew immediately about the meeting with Willie Rice and Tom Buck. Could it be that Keith saw Pastor Tom approaching Willie as another example of Tom intimidating one of his friends? And we know that Tom Askell was one of the SBC presidential nominees of 2022 and one of Tom Buck's friends friends and supporters. And we know from the audio recording from Danny Aiken that Keith Whitfield is dangerously involved with SBC politics. Could it be that Keith saw Pastor Tom's approach to Willie as an attempt to politically undermine Willie's campaign? And even the language of this text message in 2019 is similar to the anonymous email sent to B&G in 2022. I am sending this anonymously because I know Pastor Buck, and I've seen up close the way he will bully, attack, and intimidate people he sees as enemies.
Interesting. That's a really interesting tie. I mean, obviously we don't know who this anonymous email is from, but that's quite interesting. So this is March 27th, so 2022, which would have been a few years after all the other stuff. Trying to think, okay, yeah, so Keith Whitfield has talked to him years before. So could it be that he's the one, since he is claiming to know Pastor Buck and has seen how he attacks people that he sees as enemies? So here's the thing, this is something that I talk about all the time. We do have enemies in this world, as Christians. And so it is the duty of every pastor to call out false teachings and false teachers. So we have to do that to protect the flock, to protect God's church. So criticizing somebody publicly is what we have to do. This is what we have to do to protect God's church. And so it's I'm friends with atheists, with all sorts of different people that are enemies of God. I have lots of friends that are not Christian. They're enemies in the ultimate sense, in that we're not on the same team. They are fighting for Satan and the forces of evil, and I'm fighting for Christ. So in that sense, we are enemies. But they're also friends. I love them. I care for them. I care for their salvation. The destination of their soul in eternity. I have family that's like that as well. So it's I don't think that anything that I have ever seen him do is bullying, attacking, and intimidating. And certainly what we've seen in this does not qualify as bullying, attacking, intimidating, and seeing them as enemies. He's, instead of attacking Willie Rice, which he could have done, he went to him personally and had a personal discussion. Instead of attacking Karen Pryor, he went to her personally. It's not that he didn't call her out publicly for public statements, but even still, I'd call friends out for public statements. I mean, I'd probably do it personally first because I'm friends with them, but there are people that I don't know as well as I used to that I might, if they post something on Facebook or Twitter. Well, I'm not on Facebook anymore, but on Twitter, I'd probably be hey, I just comment underneath, what are you saying? That doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't, I haven't ever seen anything. This is just me, and I followed him for a little while. I don't see him as a bully. Everybody calls him a bully, but that's just because he, debates the truth. He talks about what is real, what is false. He shoots down false teaching. He, points out heresies. If you want to call that bullying, attacking, intimidating, whatever. But I don't think this is, I don't know if this is Keith, but it's sounds very much like what Keith Whitfield believes, at least. So I didn't even think about this as a connection, but that's a really interesting connection there. So Means and motive.
Could it be that Keith Whitfield was involved in sending Jennifer's rough draft to B&G? Is that why he approached Karen to authenticate the rough draft when it didn't work? Could it be he deleted the phone number to protect himself and cover up his trail, and why he lied to Dr. Aiken for 15 days? Could it be that all of this was why he refused to help Pastor Tom and Jennifer Buck? Could it be he is the reason for this whole fiasco? If only there was an investigation. Between April 2nd and April 7th, there was just silence from Dr. Aiken, Karen Pryor, or Keith Whitfield. Danny Aiken became sick with COVID on April 3rd and was almost hospitalized.
And that, by the way, and I'm not making an excuse, is when I began to come down with all the symptoms of COVID. It was so serious for me. They thought about me going to the hospital. I didn't leave the house for 12 days.
As a result, he was unable.
Just real quick, I didn't know that. Like, I had heard about him not responding back. I think it was back even then, that he had been silent for days when this originally came out last year. I didn't realize he had COVID. So I'm going to say I was probably wrong about some of my assumptions. If he was sick and just unable to help, that makes a lot of sense. So I could see, like, if you got really sick, like, it might take you a month to really get back to some of this. So, Dr. Aiken, I'm sorry.
Able to effectively help the Bucks. Everywhere Jennifer and Tom Buck looked for answers, they just kept getting threats and dead ends.
You may be upset with me when I tell you this. This person sent it to me because I asked him to. I asked him to because I wanted to be prepared to defend you.
Who did you ask?
I'm not going to tell you.
On April 6, Willie Rice on Twitter publicly stepped down as the presidential nominee for the SBC convention and saw that his primary duty now is to the local church, my family, and to the mission field God has given me. I wish to return my time and attention to those things. Later that day, Keith then calls Dr. Aiken, and the account that took place is admittedly confusing. Keith claims that Karen has refused to reveal who the third party is to him, but Karen denies that she did this. Either way, Keith and Karen's independent accounts just simply conflict with one another.
Yeah, so what I was asking Karen is why when Keith came and asked you that Dr. Aiken wanted to know who the third party was, why did you send the message back that I don't want Dr. Aiken to know, or I'm not going to tell him?
I didn't do that. What?
Well, that's what Keith told Dr. Aiken you did.
Is that what he just said just now? What?
Yes.
I don't.
He said that you still did not want to involve anybody else in it and did not want that third party. You didn't want the third party to be known.
I don't know. I don't know what that communication was. I
hate that he's involved in all this, but
he's
such a chill dude.
But Keith assured.
I will say, reading her body language, I kind of believe her. Not gonna lie. Yeah, look at this guy. He's just like chill. He's there to help. I've always loved Dr. Aiken. I'm sad that he's kind of in the thick of all this, but he was a great president for when I was at Southeastern, so I'm a little biased, but yeah.
I don't know what that communication was. I don't know.
But Keith assured Dr. Aiken that the draft will not get verified to the media. But how can Keith know that unless he knew Karen Pryor was the only one that could verify it? Because of the silence from Southeastern, Jennifer feared that the blackmail was still underway, and not wanting the sinful actions of a few people eclipse her desire to share the beautiful story of God's redemptive work in their marriage, Jennifer decided now was a good time to publish the story. And on April 7th, Jennifer published a completed story on G3 Ministries' website, to which many people were blessed by it. Later that day, Danny Aiken texts Tom, assuring him the draft will not get verified. But this proved to be disingenuous. The dark forces in the SBC were on the move, and the blackmail was still verified. But this proved...
All right. Sorry, and I have gotten back sooner. I have COVID, been pretty sick. I have been told no one is going to confirm to the media the essay about you and Jennifer. I hope this puts an end to this for you guys. Okay. So, this is what he has been told. So, Dr. Aiken has been told by somebody that nobody is going to do this. So, there we go.
To be disingenuous, the dark forces in the SBC were on the move, and the blackmail was still underway. And on April 11th, the BNG published their article smearing Tom, his wife, and his ministry, and all hell broke loose.
I have had to sit by and watch as Tom has been maligned. I have been made fun of, and the intention and purpose of my article has been twisted by an intentional hit piece, and not one acting leader has publicly spoken in our defense. We have been hung out to dry by the very people who have the power to change the conversation and the dynamic of the game. I am deeply hurt. I am deeply angry. I am deeply disillusioned with this process. I don't want to hear any sentiments about my pain. I want to see evidence that somebody is willing to actually do something more than lip service. I believe we have been mistreated as fellow believers in Christ. I believe I have mistreated as a survivor by the leaders at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. And I believe the testimony of Christ has been damaged. And this entire situation has been mishandled in egregious ways.
All right, so there's one more part. He has not released that, so we'll talk about that. Yeah, so my biggest complaint for Dr. Aiken, because I think he's handled himself very well. I was very encouraged by that originally. I didn't realize, like, I had heard about him, like, not responding for a while. I was disappointed in that, but if he had COVID, that makes a lot of sense. I must have missed that part, so sorry, Dr. Aiken, for that, if I misunderstood some of that. But Southeastern does eventually go quiet. I imagine this will be talked about in the finale. So all this happened in like March, April, and May of last year. And then I think the trustees of Southeastern and or like the lawyers get involved, and so everybody goes quiet. As far as I know, that's what I know. And so that's my biggest criticism. It's like we need like I feel like we need a external, either a transparent internal investigation, which I don't think that's happened, or a external transparent debate investigation into this needs to be happened, where all these guys involved like have their have somebody that they trust looking through stuff. I don't know how these investigations happen, but we need an investigation. This is kind of sad that this has happened in the way that it has. I don't know. I'm just a rando Christian. I'm not like someone in charge, so I don't know how the legal process should be done. But investigation should happen, I think. So I imagine he's going to release the next video in a day or two, and I'll probably review it then. So it actually might have been released by the time this video comes out. But yeah, so let me know what you think. What do you think about all that? I think at the very least, like, it seems that Whitfield, is he a doctor? Dr. Whitfield, I think so, has done some pretty shady stuff. And I just seeing Karen Pryor's response there, in contradiction to Whitfield. Of course, I haven't seen what Whitfield said, so like sometimes, like, I feel like you can see body language a little better. She seemed genuine, at least in some of that response. So I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not a body. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm not an analyst. I don't see like what people their body language is. I'm not an interpreter of the body language, but it seemed to me like she was telling the truth, at least in that area. She did seem like she knew a little bit more, but let me know what you think. I'm curious to hear what you guys got to say on this. And this is a bit longer. It was a longer video, so thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Go ahead and subscribe. I talk about all sorts of stuff, SBC, philosophy, politics, aliens. I've thought about responding to Matt Walsh's alien stuff. That might be fun. But, yeah. So I appreciate you hanging out this far. Give us a like. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.